be. So that is, from the demand side, that is a driver for the adoption of batteries in the transportation side.
I think the prospect of growth for electric load is very high, at least here in California. So we have very aggressive GHG reduction targets, and if you actually look at a graph over time, we're making pretty good progress. But if you look at through 2030, 2045, we have to have a steep drop in our emissions. And the electric sector is only 20% of the state's GHG emissions. The vast majority of that is like 40–50% is transportation, and there's industrial emissions and agricultural emissions. And so I think the vision of a lot of the policymakers here in California is let's electrify all our end uses so that we can actually take advantage of 100% clean renewables that's available on the electricity grid. So electrify buildings, that also helps achieve our long-term, zero net energy home goals. So, all new construction, I think in 2020, 25, one of those. Yeah, 2030 have to be zero net energy. They can't, zero net energy is self-explanatory. But and so there's all these pressures, and so even the transportation sector, the utilities are investing close to $1 billion in new electrification programs for not just light duty and medium duty, but also heavy duty and ports and stations. So I think there's going to be definitely a lot of growth there.
This will send word. I don't think we'll see that many changes in California as far as lifestyle goes. I mean, we're already incredibly efficient. I mean, California in the 70s, through this guy Rosenfeld, started aggressive energy efficiency programs, and California uses per capita as much electricity as it did in the 70s. So everyone else in the country has gone up 40%. Where you'll see is actually, I think, bigger changes in the Midwest. Another crazy factoid for me: 54% of delivered energy goes to industry. So you think about it, industrial users use much as transportation, commercial buildings, and homeowners combined, right? And those are big coal states. So 1% change in a paint factory is millions of dollars a year. So it changes there. And you'll see places like India, China, and things like that. India has right now 90 gigawatts of diesel generators. It's like, they get a lot of power from diesel generators. Getting rid of that through conventional electrification make big changes, not only the number of people who can access it, the hours they can use it, and the cost.
And I'd like to make one comment, then we'll go on to the next question. But, and this doesn't have to do so much with lifestyle changes, but I think actually with climate change. It's an unfortunate thing that we're seeing a lot more natural disasters. And one example was last year when we had the disastrous fires in the North Bay. Well, there was actually one winery that had a microgrid going, and they were able to get through the fires and still maintain their operations. And also in Japan, we're seeing this as well. After the tsunami, many people who operate factories and such realized that they have to be more self-reliant on and start putting in like cogeneration and other things. These are applications that are going to need energy storage. Certainly you've seen here also with the hurricanes in Puerto Rico and now in North Carolina, more and more of industrial operations in particular are seeing that they're going to need to be putting in microgrids, their own generation, and I think that's going to drive energy storage as well.
New York too, all the skyscrapers that had their own grids came up quicker and now are getting cheap rents.
Yeah.
So there's throwing another acronym out there with the mobility as a service, MaaS. There's studies that I've seen and also have done for clients ourselves that show that it is a lot more efficient to run a car sharing service on an electrified fleet than on a regular combustion engine fleet. So there's a lot of attention and the connection between the world of MaaS and electrification of the fleet. So people are looking at that for that reason alone.
Okay, and we'll go next question. Oh, and then over there. First up here. Playing traffic on.
I just had a follow-up question on, you mentioned 600 kilowatts that are coming up and trying to charge things in 8 minutes and such. And I can understand where that might work fine for maybe a homeowner to do that, but if you're on Route 5 and in Harris Ranch and there's 40 chargers and each of them are trying to draw 600 kilowatts to charge 10 Teslas in 8 minutes. That doesn't sound like that's going to be a possible battery application because you're going to be building batteries as big as Hoover Dam. And so isn't that going absolutely against doing the storage, that we need actually more power generation that isn't going to be solved by storage? I mean, it almost seems like going backwards.
A lot of the driver for the 600 kilowatt, sized inverters comes from public charging from these highways, rather than the personal sort of private charging, because there's a lot of, I guess, the urgency of charging is when you're out there on the road and you're kind of driving for 500 miles and you're halfway and you're running out of juice. Basically, you need to recharge and you need to do it in 8 minutes. Not so much traction for this kind of technology from sort of the Tesla Powerwall type of technology. You have 8 hours at home, 4 hours would do, 2 hours would do. We have that technology today. It's cost effective. We're talking of a charging station, like a level 2 charging station, anywhere between $500, $700 retail MSRP price. Some of this technology available today, I've seen it being priced as on an installed level, $375,000 per unit. And that includes a lot of the grid upgrade, and it assumes probably some kind of energy storage as well. But we're talking applications really geared at the sort of the hyper highway kind of charging rather than like extremely fast charging. They actually call it XFC, extreme fast charging applications, and they typically, are geared for the public charging of, and we're not even talking office tower kind of charging. You go to work and you charge, you're there probably for several hours. We are talking specific applications sort of across highways. And to your point, yes, it does either require a special upgrade of the grid, so PG&E needs to go out there and build that highway. So quote unquote highway of feeder that can carry that kind of load, or have distributed, not so much generation, but maybe distributed storage solution. Folks are talking about building storage that works in tandem with these kind of highway solutions, where you'd be able to store energy ahead of time and then deliver it really fast when needed during those 6 minutes, 8 minutes. In either case, it requires either a utility upgrade or a third-party investment in energy storage, but I guess the effect is probably more mild when we're talking about storage, because of the effect of what I just explained. You have the time, maybe overnight, to kind of load on.
What I was worried about those big ones, the 6 or 8 minutes, but if there's a line of cars that are doing it from 9 in the morning till 5 at night or till 8 at night, then no storage system is going to be able to handle that. You're behind the 8 ball completely.
And nobody's forecasting that far out. I think we're talking, a horizon of 5 to 10 years, assuming everybody will drive a XFC kind of vehicle, and would be able to have ubiquitous charging of 6 to 8 minutes. I think we're talking probably a lot further out than 5 to 10 years.
Maybe a good application for nuclear batteries. And there was a question back there?
Yes, I'd like to ask you about the price of storage. And in the Phil's graph shows that it was about $200 a kilowatt hour. Can you show that graph again? I was so impressed because about 10 years ago, Tony Saber made a lecture in Keizai, Silicon Valley, and he predicted, it was, I think 2009 when he wrote a book of solar trillium. And he predicted that it was $1,000 a kilowatt hour. He said if it is $100 or less, the storage will be explosively increased. So I was so impressed that it was $209. You look at $209.
That's according to BNEF.
And I think that Tesla is talking about $100 right now.
Okay. So we are very close to the explosive use of storage. Is that really realistic, do you think?
I think we should take these numbers in context, because I think these are just battery pack costs. So if we're looking at grid storage, for example, there's the all-in balance of system costs that includes inverters, BMS systems. And so all those together, we're seeing more closer to like $700 per kilowatt hour for utility scale.
Right now?
Huh?
Right now, $700, you said?
I'd say that's more realistic. If we're looking at utility scale, yeah, whole system costs.
What's good about this curve here, actually, J.D. Staubel, one of the co-founders of Tesla, used to have a thing called Staubel's Law, which was battery costs would cut in half every 10 years. And they were at that pace. So, as you can see, it's a much quicker ramp toward the bottom than it was in the past.
Thank you.
Believe it or not, we're running on time. I think I have one more question, and we have it right here.
Thank you very much. I'm working for a company called Renova, which is a renewable energy developer, and we have about 1.5 gigawatt of renewable energy projects in operation and under development. And I personally am a big believer of energy storage, but unfortunately we do not have any plan to install batteries on any of our 1.5 gigawatt renewable energy projects, simply because it doesn't make any economic sense as of today. So I'm just curious, aside from mandate, is there any incentivizing measure for IPPs to install batteries or any other energy storage devices?
Yeah, so, I know recontracting a lot of your existing projects will probably not be, because you sign a lot of these PPAs when renewable prices are pretty nice. But I think, the driver for, solar plus storage or wind plus storage, I mean, part of it comes from, avoiding, charges in the ISO market through, because solar output fluctuates, sub-hourly, minute by minute, you incur some of those flexible allocation charges. You can potentially avoid some of those by just adding 1 hour of storage, for example. But I'm not completely aware of other states. I know Colorado, Arizona, they're all investing in a lot of solar plus storage, but at least in California, renewables and storage procurement is siloed. I think a lot of that has to do with how the capacity value of solar plus storage is not valued. The capacity value of solar plus storage and standalone solar is the same here in California. And so that's kind of one of the challenges that we're working on at the commission. They're focusing on how can we actually break out the different technology types, because frankly, even within just standalone solar, they actually don't make any distinction between the capacity value by location of solar, whether it's tracking versus fixed tilt, which is bizarre, but that's just a policy landscape that we're in today, so we're trying to fix that. But other states might be different.
And Jen mentioned this, that the small generator interconnection program has some incentives for small projects, like 3 megawatts now, right? So yeah, up to 3 megawatts, it provides the upfront incentive to develop on the storage portion of a storage project paired with solar. So that's probably the only actual incentive out there.
Okay, great. Well, I think it's pretty obvious we could probably keep on going for quite some time. But in the interest of time and so we have a chance, we could bring up any of the extra questions. I think people will stay around for another half hour or so. So first of all, I'd just like to say on behalf of the Keizai Society, or Keizai Silicon Valley, shows you how long I've been around, as well as Japan Society of Northern California. I'd like to thank you all for coming to this event. And also, I believe we haven't announced our next event at Keizai Silicon Valley. We're working in for a fall event.
Yes, some sort of networking event in October.
Okay.
In November, we will have another session in conjunction with one of our sponsors.
It's most likely beginning of December.
December, yeah, we are working on the dates.
So yeah, so please watch the Keizai Silicon Valley website, and if you haven't signed up for our newsletter, please do so, and we'll notify you on our next ones. And also don't forget, we always have our New Year's party, which generally comes in January.
January 25th.
January 25th.
Mark your calendar.
Mark your calendar. So again, thank you very much, and we hope to see you at the next one.